I think that's one of the things that upsets me a little bit now about like some of the hate watchers or like old fans that haven't like moved on is like thinking that all of this is like by accident. Like my choices are just like, oh, a series of unfortunate events. And it's like, that's not what it is. It's like super intentional. Like I'm aware of it.
Yeah. I need to be on a leash.
Creator Clash 2, it was a success. We lost $250,000 on the event.
We did everything we could right. I know that you would fucking cry if I said something to you in real life. I know you would cry. How do I know? Because I've done it to one of you fuckers in real life and you have cried.
You do realize there are guys out there in private right now jacking off to your girlfriend. How am I the simp? How am I the simp? I was morally grandstanding, and for anyone who liked those videos, I want this video to be an example and a lesson for you. Let me just say, Anisa is just trying to exist.
And you even said that I made you feel like a bitch. And I'm glad that I did, to be honest. More people should do that to you. You want to get clipped. You want to get clipped. You want to get shared. Negative, positive, more often negative. It's kind of like when you go fishing and you go to a new lake and you're like, I'm just going to like throw out, I don't know, a grasshopper that I found on the ground and just a big old trout. I am unhinged.
Anisa is just trying to exist. That sort of like flippant behavior, it makes me want to be violent. It makes me want to be very violent. Oh, a series of unfortunate events. And it's like, that's not what it is. It's like super intentional. Like I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to separate constructive criticism from hate sometimes.
Criticism isn't the easiest thing to navigate. There can be hostility, miscommunications, ego issues, and so on. Avoiding criticism in one way or another may be less painful in the short term, though if gone unchecked for too long, there are usually consequences. This video is about critique, defiance, failure, and the possibility of redemption. iDubbbz, also known as Ian, is a YouTuber most known for Content Cop, a critical series on other controversial YouTubers. Though his career has been through the ringer. It's been over a year since I've made a video about Ian or his lovely wife Anisa, and things have only gotten worse for them since. The problems they were dealing with years ago are the same problems they continue to complain about today. Some may say that the mistakes that Ian has made are trivial, however, it's undeniable that he's lost a significant amount of viewership and respect as a content creator over the last few years. Whether or not you think he's largely responsible for his own downfall, a multi-million-dollar YouTube career has been fumbled in one way or another. A recent podcast from Ian and Anisa tries to make it seem like iDubbbz has started to figure things out and is about to right the ship of his brand and career.
You had come to that conclusion, I'm pretty sure, the last video that you put out. So when I watched it, I was like, oh, holy shit, he's figured it out. I was able to like bring it up to you like, okay, now go look at the Cheez-It video and like tell me.
Cheez-It video is such a great example
if you
of
could
that.
see the difference between this one and the Cheez-It video, and you watched it, and for the first time you were like, oh yeah, there it is.
But I'm not convinced that iDubbbz has started to get himself out of the hole he's found himself in. He established himself as one of the most critical YouTubers out there and turned out to be hypersensitive to criticism himself, to the point where he's willing to hold a grudge against his old audience for years. We'll go over Ian's past controversies for people not as familiar with the iDubbbz saga, and I'll provide some fresh context from their more recent content along the way to shed some new light for those more familiar with his story. Before we get into the initial conflict between Ian and his audience, let's talk about this criticism issue a bit more, because one of the critiques he regularly gets is that he sucks at listening to it. This point has been made many times before, but it's still strange to see the guy known for his edgy takedowns of other YouTubers handle criticism and mockery so poorly.
Over the past year, maybe couple of years, I've kind of been ignoring a lot of feedback, I think, from the audience.
Well, it's been hard because you have, in some regards, been gaslit. Heavily.
Right.
Like,
it feels bad because I think I've been, for my own mental health, like ignoring that.
Yes.
For many YouTubers, not looking at the comments at all is an option. iDubbbz, however, has had a bad relationship with his audience for quite some time, and his viewership has been declining for years, so understanding why people have issues with him is important. Ian has been defiant towards his fans for a while.
What it is, I think, in general, is it's just me being flippant. Oh, the word is defiant.
Defiant.
I think I have a defiant streak.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like, it's one of the reasons that I did not want to work a normal job.
Yeah.
I hated being told what to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's like what's expected.
Yeah.
That is your most American trait.
Yeah. True.
Don't tell me what to do.
And it is this childlike defiance that is the essence of his failure. This years-long streak of defiance started where you might guess, OnlyFans. In March of 2020, Ian's girlfriend, now wife, decided to start an OF account. Before this, Anisa would stream in a revealing way, so it wasn't too drastic of a career change for her. Still, both her and iDubbbz got a lot of backlash over this. Most people were just making fun of them, but there are some people who took it rather personally. Ian talked about this in his old response video.
A good amount of people are just doing the reasonable thing and just making jokes and laughing about it, but there's a whole nother group of people who feel personally devastated and betrayed.
When I first saw this video when it came out, I didn't think much of it. I think having an OF girlfriend is whack, and so was Ian's response, but it didn't really affect my opinion of his content. Now I'm seeing it in a different light. It no longer comes off as a frustrated clarification. It comes off as vengeful and petty, sort of like, "You, the audience, have upset me. Now I'm going to teach you a lesson about making fun of simps."
You think these retards would actually do a smidgen of research? This is straight out of the playbook of the boomer who's decaying in his lazy boy, who wants to tell you, no one's gonna hire you looking like that.
The internet is a forever archive, so there's no, regret, delete all button. That's not quite there.
I don't know why this shitty point is being made. It's sort of like from 2003. By the way, the internet, it's a forever archive. Didn't know if you knew.
This aged horribly. Maybe Anisa doesn't care if her nude pictures are shared without her permission, but a search for those photos on both Google and DuckDuckGo show free re-uploads of her material before her official OF page. Ian's other points are about as bad, like how you should be okay with OF models because there are probably people who are jacking it to your girlfriend without her knowledge anyway.
You should break up with her. But I'm cool with it. You do realize there are guys out there in private right now jacking off to your girlfriend. But I guess it's out of sight, out of mind, it's not a problem.
And sure, there are a lot of gooners out there. The difference is that Anisa is actively encouraging those people to goon to her in order to make money and garner attention. I'm pretty sure that's the part people have a problem with, but I digress. What about Ian's approach to this situation? He digs up tweets with no likes and no traction in order to make a point about the hate he's getting. It comes off as desperate to control public perception. iDubbbz had such a large audience, there was bound to be some hate thrown his way no matter what the controversy was. He decided to make a harsh and preachy response as a main channel upload. He chose to amplify the most aggressive comments towards him by reflecting their hostility. I mean, he's about as red as a stick of dynamite from Looney Tunes here. Those tweets had no traction. This was a video posted to a channel that regularly gets millions of views per video right after the OF controversy. Of course there was going to be further backlash. I bet a lot of his viewers at the time weren't even clued into what was happening, and then they were hit with this cherry red rage. In the grand scheme of things, this didn't do that much damage to the iDubbbz channel at the time. His videos were still getting millions of views afterwards. However, this did change Ian's attitude towards his audience.
You felt like the audience was like with you 100%, like they got it. And then I think this actually started during the OnlyFans thing, where you all of a sudden saw that your audience was projecting a lot of things onto you, that you like had all these thoughts and feelings that you don't have. And I think it scared you of like, holy shit, these people don't know me at all.
Right.
A very big thing that has sort of altered my view on all of this is just the amount of hate and harassment my wife Anisa has received over the years.
These are often Anisa's words, although Anisa is known to speak for Ian.
I have this problem where I talk for us.
Yeah.
I've always had that problem. And
She's doing it now.
I'm doing it now, but that's why I love that you're in therapy, because I think that
I'm getting better at it. Having no choice but to confront it head on, it's like really like, okay, Anisa's not here. What do I say?
There is something to be said about Anisa speaking for Ian all of the time, but his defiance and resentment towards his own audience would explain a lot in the story of his career. The people who took things oddly personally were a vocal minority, and that's who iDubbbz chose to focus on. Couple this with how sensitive Ian is to criticism and mockery, and things start to fall into place.
For every 20 positive comments, the one comment holds about as much as a power as the 20 negative ones and or positive ones. Even if it's just one day or a small controversy, it's so much worse than like a legacy or multiple years of Doing well, doing pretty good.
This is a bit much, but it is a common problem that people have, focusing too much on the negative. Sometimes a bad remark can stick with us for longer than we would expect, and I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. But when you're a YouTuber, a highly critical commentary channel, getting negative comments is a natural part of the process, especially during a controversy. Looking for tweets with no traction to highlight the kind of hate you're getting is basically an invitation for more people to start dunking on you. This was a pretty bad way to approach the OF situation, and it still seems to bother him to this day. But for about 2 years after Ian's response video, he was relatively controversy-free. He never made another content cop, but his uploads were satisfactory, for the most part. They weren't anything special, and the iDubbbz channel at one point did feel special. He released his Dax Flame documentary during this time, and out of the 3 documentaries he did, the others on Airsoft Fatty and Sam Hyde, I think the one on Dax Flame was the weakest. Not a bad video, but relatively forgettable. He also wasn't uploading as much during this 2-year span. While it wasn't obvious to everyone at this point, Ian still held on to his resentment over the OF kerfuffle. With his next documentary, however, more people would start to look at iDubbbz differently. So, the Sam Hyde arc. We'll learn a bit more about Sam as we revisit this. All that's important for now is that he's a controversial comedian, and that's probably putting it lightly. iDubbbz made a documentary about him titled Getting Away With It. It was another video that would be divisive for the iDubbbz audience. Entertainment-wise, this was some of the best stuff ever put on his channel. He went through various odd and questionable aspects of Sam's life, only for Sam to reveal that it was all for show.
I'm curious about your relationship with Danny. Has she been on drugs since she met you?
She's been on drugs since before she met me. So if you're implying that I've driven her to drug use, you are incorrect.
Okay. Have you tried to get her any help?
No, seeing as she's a girl I paid $500 to shave her head and pretend to be my girlfriend, no, I haven't tried to get her any help. Also, I think I told her to put her hand in your pocket and pretend to be on drugs. And,
This is so upsetting to me right now.
You think I'm a millionaire? You think I have a shit-ass office like this?
Shut up. This is your office.
Says who? Also, the slingshots are rental.
There are a lot of details to the story behind this documentary, but the main question is, what were Ian's intentions with his documentary on Sam? Was it meant to be a hit piece to make Sam look bad, or did he have a more pure motive in mind? Let's look at the points for both sides of this old debate. Sam and Ian's first interaction was years before this came out, and it was a negative one. I guess Sam was making some kind of pony game as a joke, but didn't want people to know it was a joke or something like that. Ian made a video about it, addressing it like a real product because he wasn't in on the joke. Sam issued a copyright claim.
There were some creators at the time who made videos about this fake pony project.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Were you one of them?
I was one of them.
What did I do?
You copyright claimed the video.
I was trying to not have that ruse get blown, though.
Right.
So maybe that had something to do with it.
That probably did.
First, let's address the copyright claim. I don't agree with it, even if it was an attempt to preserve the humor of what Sam was doing. Copyright claims are whack and should be reserved for egregious situations only. However, this was years ago, and it seems like Ian has been holding on to a grudge against Sam ever since. After all, he says that's the reason why he's there.
That's what led to this day today.
Really? Okay, so are you gonna punk me?
You're getting punked.
Really? How are you gonna punk me?
I'm gonna make you look like an asshole.
Really?
Which isn't hard to do.
Is that really the case?
No.
It almost comes across like he's saying, you brought this upon yourself. The counter to this is, well, Ian was just breaking the ice. Bringing up their first interaction isn't strange at all. It goes deeper than that, and if you have any social skills at all, you can tell that iDubbbz is taking a combative and antagonistic approach during much of the interview.
Did I create an enemy with that?
I mean, for a period.
Damn.
I didn't like you.
I'm sorry.
You were an asshole.
I'm sorry, buddy. That's no good.
Yeah, why'd you do that to me?
Then there's the timing of the release of the doc. Sam had his own crew there, and they were able to get enough of their own footage to make their own cut. He was suspicious of Ian's intentions from the first email.
I knew from the get-go that he was coming out here to make me look bad. I knew from the first email what it was because he'd been getting a lot of shit from like 4chan right-wing type guys because of his OnlyFans girlfriend. He's gonna make me look bad so that he can like get one over on the people that have been trolling him for having a OnlyFans girlfriend.
So it makes sense that he would want his own footage. Sam claims there was 9 months without any communication or any sign that the documentary would actually come out at this point.
It's not to make iDubbbz look stupid or anything, or like do anything like, oh, burn, we took your documentary footage and released it first, dude. No, it's just like we spent $15,000 on this.
Yeah.
We took 9 months to make, or it's been 9 months and there's no communication, and we spent 2 weeks of time. That's what I'm more worried about. So
because the filming didn't go how Ian had planned and Sam stole the show with his antics, he believed that iDubbbz wasn't going to release the documentary at all, so he released his own version, which implied some of his concerns about iDubbbz trying to snake him. Let's back up for a second though, because the iDubbbz camp also claims there was no communication.
Sam did not communicate at all
Yeah.
with Ian about that, so that was obviously a tactic, probably.
Probably.
On this one, I believe Sam. There's footage of him calling Ian. He talks about how he feels like he may have tried to communicate too much.
I think I probably kind of like overwhelmed him. He was on Twitter. He was on Twitter trying to line up fights with people. And I was like, yo, can you get me in there? Let me get a fight with Fantano. And I think I bothered him too much. Something like that. I wasn't like an asshole or anything, but I think I probably just texted him too many times.
And iDubbbz as well as Anisa have both talked about their terrible communication skills.
You ask any of our fighters and it's like, yeah, Anisa was the one who like solves problems. She is more communicative than me, and she's better at communicating than I am. I f***ing suck at this shit.
I'm fully tattooed, right? Can't make a phone call. You phone me, I'm not picking that shit up. I'm hiding from my phone.
Anisa is the one. She is the one to talk to.
Ian does all the phone stuff, to be honest.
Sam comes across as the kind of person who would be responding and reaching out to the person he just collaborated with for a week to make sure the project is still making progress. iDubbbz comes across as the kind of person who has a panic attack whenever the doorbell rings. Alright, back to the timing of the release. The iDubbbz version came out a month after Sam's. This caused a lot of people to think that iDubbbz only released his version as a response, and that if Sam never uploaded his version, Ian's cut wouldn't have come out either. That Ian wasn't able to make the hit piece on Sam he wanted and planned on scrapping the project altogether, only for Sam to release his version. The iDubbbz camp has recently denied this, attributing the delay to their editor's procrastination, saying that the documentary was almost done by the time Sam uploaded.
I'm like a chronic procrastinator. I just put it off for too long. I do that with a lot of things, my own work included.
Yeah. No, I mean, Ian does too. I do as well. And I think that's the problem is all three of us, none of us set deadlines.
Nope.
For ourselves or each other.
This is Dane, by the way. We'll see him again a bit later on. Even if procrastination is the sole reason why it came out so late, which I have my doubts on, that doesn't mean Ian's intentions were pure from the start. It just means that he wasn't planning on scrapping the project and has a lazy editor. Of course, there's also the documentary itself. Watching it again for the first time in a while, I was surprised by how much of the video is spent criticizing Sam. And I get it, Sam Hyde is a controversial figure, so talking about that in a documentary about him is natural. However, this is more than just a documentary. It's a pretty massive critique of Sam and his work, and it's clear Ian is trying to make a point.
A lot of Sam's comedy seems to be rooted in him trying to rile people up. But if you're not saying anything about something when you say it, why do you even say it? So with the context that Sam openly aligns himself with the alt-right and white and misogynistic stuff, it's hard to write off any of the ironic stuff is just ironic. That's the disconnect that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you'll see people, Sam saying based and red-pilled ironically in videos.
Yeah.
And then they'll go in the comments and they'll, have a rant about how based and red-pilled they are. There have been many infamous Sam Hyde moments where he tries to harass or get the attention of people like Ethan Klein or Lena Dunham. I was just joking is a legitimate way to exonerate yourself in moments of actual miscommunication. But it's also a perfect fallback option for when you receive criticism for a point that you are genuinely trying to make. I think eating shit is awesome. What the f? You like eating shit? I was just kidding. Are you stupid or something? Well, now I feel bad for being unaware of any irony going on, so in the future, I will not criticize you for anything you say. I am now invulnerable to criticism.
So when he says this is not intended to be a hit piece,
Yeah, the video is not meant to be a hit piece.
it's hard to believe, especially with the context outside of the doc. People may disagree on the definition of hit piece, but it's undeniable that his video is highly critical of Sam and his approach to comedy. That's fine, criticize whoever, just don't lie about your intentions. I believe people wouldn't have had as much of a problem with this video if Ian was more forthcoming about his problems with Sam. Instead, he lies about his intentions, saying that it wasn't meant to be a hit piece and he wasn't trying to make Sam look like an asshole, only to conclude the video by calling Sam an asshole.
I'm gonna make you look like an asshole.
Really?
Which isn't hard to do.
Is that really the case?
No. As far as who is Sam and what is he about, it seems like he really likes comedy, even if that means being an asshole to people. This idea of confusing people and never being genuine or only being genuine when you think it's obvious is a great game to play when the most important thing to you is never showing your taint to people. You can feel like a winner in a game that only you are playing.
There was a lot to take in regarding the Sam Hyde documentary and its creation, but I think this particular difference between Sam and Ian is worth highlighting. In the last few years or so, iDubbbz has made a big effort to be more concerned about the influence and impact of his work. In my last video, I talked about art, expression, and influence using this diagram. The point I was making was that some people become more concerned with the impact or influence of a piece of art rather than the art itself, which I think can lead to some problems. The problem that I see for iDubbbz is that his concern with his influence is probably messing with his ability to express himself. When someone as controversial as Sam Hyde tells Ian that he doesn't really care or think about how people interpret his work, I think that annoys him.
Like, can I not give a fuck about that at all?
I mean, obviously you can.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be flippant or like dismissive of your question. It's just, no, it's not something I think about.
Something that you think you should think about?
No, it's not.
The more iDubbbz tries to manage his image and tell his audience how to view his past work, the more hate he gets. Sam Hyde, on the other hand, seems to be doing better than ever, and without concern for how people may or may not interpret the messaging of his comedy. Whether you'd call this a hit piece or not, it's clear the video is designed to be a significant criticism of Sam Hyde, an explanation as to why he was at a low point, justifiably blacklisted. These are the reasons why people think iDubbbz was being deceptive when he said this wasn't meant to be a hit piece. Before we move on, there's one more thing worth mentioning, the Puppet Master comment. Sam Hyde has said on both PKA and in his interview with Brandon Buckingham that iDubbbz made a certain remark.
But at one point, he said at the tail end of the documentary, when he wasn't getting the footage that he wanted, he was really upset, like an angry child. Like he was pouting in his car and shit. And he said, usually, not to me, but to somebody on the crew, he said, usually I'm the puppet master in these situations.
What?
Yeah, he said 100% on God, he said that.
He even said to one of my crew members, overheard him saying during the shoot, he said, I'm usually the puppet master in these types of situations. Which is just like, it's just like a mentally sick thing to say.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah. Yes.
He said, I'm usually the puppet man. That's like a sociopathic way to see the world.
This was something that a lot of people were talking about. After all of this time, Ian has finally denied this claim.
Because of the puppet master
thing.
Comment.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Which, by the way, for the people watching who don't understand that reference, it's just like a complete lie made up by, I guess, people who are watching all of the Sam Hyde content.
It took him a suspiciously long time to address it, more than 2 years after the fact. I can't say for sure who was telling the truth, but personally, I believe he said that. As we'll continue to see, iDubbbz is, at the very least, deluded to an extent. There's also the other side to this. If Sam Hyde is the one lying here and just making stuff up to make iDubbbz look bad, that changes a lot and makes Ian look much more sympathetic. That is a possibility, although Ian is the one who is still vindictive, and Sam is hoping that Ian will redeem himself.
And if you could say anything to iDubbbz about this Froggy Fresh banning situation, what would you say to him?
Stop being a silly Billy and get on your redemption arc.
What's your relationship like with iDubbbz nowadays?
I think that everybody deserves a chance at redemption.
You think he deserves one?
Yes.
But isn't he, what's the issue with him?
I don't have an issue with him.
So why would he need redemption in the first place?
Well, have you seen him lately?
I don't keep up with him. I heard that his girlfriend cheated on him or something.
Well, check him out, because he needs redemption.
To be honest, that documentary probably should have been a hit piece now that I know how it all ended up.
Yeah.
It's
True.
So I believe Sam, although it is a he said, she said kind of thing. Overall, I think it's clear that Ian was looking for a win while Sam wanted to put on a show. That's why a good chunk of people started to look at iDubbbz differently at this point. Let's go back a clip.
To be honest, that documentary probably should have been a hit piece.
This is a recent clip about the Sam Hyde documentary, and it shows us a few things. First, Ian has convinced himself that his video on Sam doesn't qualify as highly critical or a hit piece. If that's truly how he feels, that's delusional. He was trying to use Sam to make a point, not put on a show. Second, that he still holds a grudge against Sam, probably thinking he's responsible for the collapse of iDubbbz Incorporated. That's delusional as well. Third, it shows some regret for taking a softer approach to making videos. Now that part makes sense to me. As eager as some may be to convince you otherwise, there's nothing to be gained from losing your edge. Impotence is not a virtue. Only a few months after the documentary came out, iDubbbz would run and participate in his YouTuber boxing event, Creator Clash. It was an overall success. They had top-notch production, a great venue, some notable e-celebs ready to fight each other, all for a good cause, charity. The only common complaint about the first Creator Clash was that Ian banned Sam Hyde from attending the event whatsoever. Given the context of the situation, it really rubbed some people the wrong way, myself included. First, there's the recent documentary. It looked like iDubbbz reached out to Sam just to try and smear him, only for Sam to disarm things in an entertaining way. There was plenty of room for amicability after the fact, but iDubbbz had no intention to mend fences. This makes him come off as bitter and sour that he wasn't able to punk Sam the way he wanted. Then there's the fact that Sam helped train one of the fighters on the Creator Clash card, Harley from Epic Mealtime. Not allowing a trainer to be there for their fighter doesn't feel right, although I'm not familiar with boxing culture whatsoever. Lastly, and I think for many people this was the most important thing, it was a charity event that Sam paid more than $10K to in order to attend, only for Ian to ban him at the last second after he already bought plane tickets.
No, I didn't think I was going to be on the card, but I didn't realize at any point that I was going to be blacklisted from a charity event. I got 5 front row tickets. It was $10,000, and it's for charity. And supposedly I'm going to be refunded this money. So I guess he wants me not around badly enough that it's worth taking away $10,000 from charity. He was going to wait until I was in Tampa to spring that news on me.
We bargained enough to where we got in. Unfortunately, we tried nonstop to get Sam in, but it wouldn't work.
If Ian simply didn't want Sam to fight at the event, that's fine. I understand he's a controversial figure and they're trying to raise money through sponsors. But turning down money for charity at the last second in order to ban the person you were recently trying to pull one over on is one of the worst PR decisions I know of. There will be more. There are going to be some people who disagree with this framing of things, so let's address the main counter-argument. That Sam Hyde is a dangerous troll who would have sabotaged the event. I get why there would be this concern. Sam can be chaotic and disruptive. It's kind of what he's known for. No one can say for sure how things would have played out if he was allowed at the first Creator Clash, even though I think he would have been respectful. With that said, Ian should have allowed him to attend. If Sam truly was planning on sabotaging the event, he would have made a complete fool of himself, proving Ian right about him. The reputation of iDubbbz and Creator Clash would not have been affected because the blame would have fallen on Sam, not the charity event. Then Ian actually would have had a reason to ban him from future events, and people would have been far more understanding. If Sam wasn't planning on sabotage and instead wanted to bury the hatchet, which seemed to be the case, that could have been a wholesome moment. The only situation where iDubbbz was guaranteed to look bad is the one where he turns down money for charity in order to take a firm stance on a guy he was claiming not to take a firm stance on. Hindsight is 20/20, I suppose. Between the first and second Creator Clash, about a year apart, iDubbbz only released 2 videos not relating to those events, one dunking on Doomsday Preppers, the other of him making a Thanos fidget toy. From what I understand, Ian was focusing a lot on training for the next fight and getting the event in order during this time. It was becoming more common to see videos that were critical of iDubbbz at this point, as his audience was getting to be more and more divided. The tiny bit of content that iDubbbz made during that time was safe and stale, making it easier for people to start disliking his channel, which was once known for being the opposite of safe and stale. Even though iDubbbz had already put off parts of his audience in different ways, all he had to do to fix things was to start making some decent content again. I know he had a lot on his plate with Creator Clash 2, but think about it. He was at the low point of his YouTube career where his audience had the most amount of doubt in him and his brand than ever before. The only 2 videos separate from Creator Clash that he released in that year were passionless, childish nothings. So not only was the public's opinion of him as a person changing, changing, but their opinion of his content was changing for the worse as well. But what about his opinion of the audience? About a month before Creator Clash 2, iDubbbz decided to be a guest on Anthony Padilla's podcast.
Thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode.
How amplified did it get?
Gender role type shit and like an idea of how men need to be.
Depression, anxiety, stress, insecurity.
I cry a lot more often.
Allowing me to have empathy for my younger self.
Gaining empathy?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go over the history of this podcast, but look at some of these thumbnails. I was being brainwashed. He knew that I was afraid of the dark. I shouldn't be alive. I won't repeat the bad words. Many clips from this interview circulated on Twitter, most notably the official YouTube short on Anthony's channel. This was also the intro of the video, so it wasn't just the public emphasizing that part.
Another thing that ended up kind of guiding the path a little bit, I did not like the interactions that I had with fans. There were quite a few human beings that I interacted with.
In person?
Yeah, in person, that just sucked. They just sucked because I attracted a lot of people who suck. Some people were, as I described earlier, were very much like antisocial, weird basement dwellers. And, you know, the one time a month that they come out of their cave is going to restock on supplies at Walmart, and they run into me, their favorite YouTuber.
And what would they say? What would they do?
Things that I am certainly not going to repeat. I'm talking bad words.
If you have an audience of millions and millions of people, you're not going to get along with or like every single one of them. Some of them are going to misinterpret the things you say. Others may have social issues, especially considering the time we live in. These things can't really be controlled or fixed by a YouTuber, no matter how they approach making content. It's not on the creator to make responsible art. It's up to the viewer to consume it responsibly. To an extent, obviously advocating for violence or something like that would be crossing a line. If artists and content creators are too concerned with what kind of influence their work has, we wind up with biased and hollow media and art. This is how iDubbbz recalls the interview roughly a year later.
In my mind, it's just like really bad communication on my part, because I started doing things that I would say are like out of character for me, like me just going on the Anthony Padilla podcast. There was a line in there that sounded like really harsh, and it was like, yeah, when the basement dwelling person like comes out and sees their favorite YouTuber, they say a slur or something.
It was much more than just a single line about basement dwellers, though. Most of the interview has to do with how much more mature and righteous he's become and how he feels about his past work as well as his fans. The entire thing comes off as a message to the haters. He never bothered to clarify himself either.
People thought, oh, he's talking about me,
Rather
when they've
than
never
the-
done that to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the vast majority of people who watch and enjoy your content would never do that.
Yeah.
But they thought that you were talking about them and saying that you know that they fell under that blanket.
Yeah, and I really wasn't trying too hard to even correct that when it was coming out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm just like, I already felt out of my element talking about a lot of the shit that I talked about on the Anthony Padilla podcast.
It was your first time ever publicly talking about any of it.
Yeah, so yeah, it was hard, and I was like, oh man, I don't feel like I'm at all ready to be making like or issuing corrections or anything like that if I've, you know, it up this bad already.
I just don't buy this narrative that iDubbbz wasn't trying to make a general statement about his content and his audience, yet didn't care enough or feel sensible enough to properly clarify himself. He was confident enough to double down on this stance a couple months after the Padilla interview with a main channel upload. This wasn't an error in communication. iDubbbz said the things he meant to got a worse reaction from the public than he was expecting and went on to regret it. For contrast, here's what iDubbbz says in general about his new direction about 6 months after the Padilla podcast.
Hate watchers or like old fans that haven't like moved on is like thinking that like all of this is like by accident. Like my choices are just like, oh, a series of unfortunate events. And it's like, that's not what it is. It's like super intentional. Like I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And here's what he says about 15 months after the Padilla podcast, after it became abundantly clear that his new direction wasn't working out.
In my mind, it's just like really bad communication on my part. I don't feel like I'm at all ready to be making like or issuing corrections or anything like that if I've, you know, fucked it up this bad already.
It was a deliberate choice to flip off his audience, so to speak. A choice he now regrets because of how terribly it backfired. He can't walk all of it back because then he'll seem even more deceitful given how much time has passed. He can't fully commit to that stance because it's been ruining his career. When he takes this fence-sitting revisionist approach, he comes off as feeble and delusional. The only good move he has is to stop dwelling on this predicament, something he clearly struggles with. It's been over a year since this interview. Here's a moment that aged like whole milk.
And you've said that anyone who focuses their entire career on making edgy content, edgy jokes, eventually finds themselves wanting to do something more fulfilling with their lives.
Totally.
What is the fulfilling thing now?
I made this like fidget toy.
Yeah,
that you pop zits out
Thanos'
of.
colorful zits?
Yes.
The fulfilling things now are fidget toy videos along with a podcast about his wife destroying his livelihood. It's been a while since iDubbbz went on his supposed empathy arc, and what has he or anyone else gained from it? What good has come from this?
Being that way, being avoidant and not, sharing feelings or thoughts and hoarding them has led to a lot of missed business opportunities, a lot of missed personal connections. I'm trying to get better at it.
Because I don't see any signs of flourishing or getting better with communication or making personal connections. I see someone who has continued to struggle. Creator Clash 2 was a disaster for the most part. The production was still solid, but the major headline was, charity boxing event loses $250,000. There are a few reasons why it did so poor financially. First, they spent too much money on the event. I don't know all of the specifics, but I do know they had about twice the amount of fighters on the card than before. They had e-celebrities there other than the fighters to host and make appearances, although I'm not sure if or how much they were paid. The venue was twice the size and they held a gala as well. I'm not sure exactly how much money they brought in, but either way, Creator Clash 2 wound up costing more than it made, and it definitely cost more to run than the first event. Second, they did a poor job promoting the event. It wouldn't have taken much effort for someone like iDubbbz to draw more attention. He made 2 videos about it in January, and the event was in April. He might have mentioned it on Twitter, but he really should have made at least a main channel video about it a week or 2 before the event. The fighters didn't do much to promote it either. There wasn't much beef or drama, which is often a big part of what draws a crowd to a fight. Manufacturing drama is lame, but I think it's a bit different when you're literally scheduled to punch someone in the face for the sake of entertainment. More interactions between the fighters leading up to the event would have gone a long way, although when one fighter tried talking trash, he wound up getting removed from the card, which brings us to the next reason why Creator Clash 2 failed, the way they handled the Froggy Fresh situation.
How am I the simp? How am I the simp? I want to know. Is it because it's a woman? It's because it's a woman, isn't it?
For those who aren't familiar, Froggy Fresh, now known as Tyler Cassidy, is a YouTuber who makes music, often in a humorous way. He was going to be fighting at Creator Clash 2, but was cut from the fight only a few weeks beforehand. There are a lot of details to the Froggy Fresh debacle, so I'm just going to go over some of the key points and show some of the more recent things that iDubbbz and Anisa has had to say about them. Here's the main reason that Ian gave for cutting Froggy from the fight.
The main reason Froggy was kicked from the card was for collaborating with Sam Hyde. And, for anyone who's been following the story, that's, fairly obvious.
Many people thought it had to do with a lighthearted joke that Froggy made about Anisa's OF account.
On April 15th, if I don't hurt you beyond what anybody could have imagined, I will be so disappointed in myself that I will subscribe to Anisa's OnlyFans.
And I wouldn't doubt if that was at least part of the reason why they kicked him.
Unfortunately, he's been perpetuating a narrative that it's about OnlyFans or that it's about Anisa's mom, and that's extremely deceptive.
iDubbbz said that it had nothing to do with Froggy getting kicked, but Anisa's mom was on Twitter getting involved in the drama, and we've seen that the whole OF thing still upsets Ian.
I don't want other people to be uncomfortable because you're there. Like, you don't get the vibe, all right? The vibe is sex workers and fighting, I guess. And you don't like the sex workers part.
So I'm pretty sure that had an impact on their decision. However, now they're saying he got kicked because he wasn't showing up for training.
Yeah, there were a lot of very justifiable reasons.
Yeah, including, not showing up to
Yeah.
to
Training. Yes.
Froggy Fresh addressed this on Twitter. Imagine over a year later talking in your Secret Dungeon podcast you're too cowardly to publicly broadcast, still coping and lying, saying the reason I was kicked out of your boxing event was because I didn't show up for training. Did that info come from the alcoholic boxing promoter your business partner set up as my coach who couldn't find me someone to spar or was too scared to spar himself that I was given permission to get rid of? The guy who was 1.5 hours drive one way that was getting paid under the table, telling me not to let the gym owner know he was getting paid because he was lying, saying that he was training me for free for a charity event? The guy who would cancel when I was in my car ready to drive 1.5 hours early as shit because he had diarrhea? Imagine doing a 1.5 hour podcast crying about your haters, lying a year later when no one fucking cares. P.S. Not all of your haters are incels, stop the cap. iDubbbz and Anisa do use that as a deflection rather often. The funny thing is that most people who clown on their relationship probably have more relationship experience than both of them put together. They're able to see the problems that iDubbbz and Anisa are blind to. Also, it doesn't make sense that iDubbbz didn't bring up Froggy not showing up to training in his video. I don't think that Froggy was perfect in all of this. It does look like he dropped the ball at least once when it came to communication and dodged responsibility.
He uploaded a Twitter video to explain the context for why he didn't respond to Anisa.
Anisa's concern text of hope everything's going okay was a way for her to try to manipulate the situation, to try to do further investigation into my friendship with Sam Hyde.
He thinks this text message is manipulation. No, Froggy, we wanted to solve the problem.
And that sucks, but as someone managing a boxing event between YouTubers, Ian needs to be able to handle situations with people he doesn't always get along with. If working with Froggy really was that uncomfortable for Ian, then he could just exclude him from future events. But finding a replacement fighter under such short notice was a potentially dangerous move physically. Chris Raygun, 5'5", was scheduled to fight Froggy Fresh, 5'2". Chris wound up fighting William Haynes, Froggy's last-second replacement, who is 5'10", 8 inches taller than the person Chris was expecting to fight. Finding an appropriately sized YouTuber, physically and in terms of popularity, who is competent and willing to fight under such short notice is not easy. Then there's the fact that Froggy trained with Sam Hyde, which also contributed to his ban. Froggy's association with Sam came as a surprise to Ian, but it would have been good for the event. It's good to have antagonists and rivalry and competition. That's what sells tickets, especially in something like boxing. This response video made iDubbbz look unprofessional and petty because it was. If you exclude people who, 1, don't agree with adult entertainment, and 2, enjoy drama from your social media boxing event, then you're going to be left with a much smaller audience in the world of YouTuber boxing, of all things. Ian also had this to say about Froggy's take on OF models.
I don't think Froggy respects sex workers. I think he has some really old, tired opinions about people who do sex work. I think he has a lot of weird opinions as well about masculinity and shit.
This shows a more cultural and political side of iDubbbz. In terms of his career and image, he went from carefree to putting all of his eggs in the politically correct basket.
When do you think the stigma around your controversial videos will end and you can make more? Well, I don't think it's going to end. What I'm noticing is that, like, as long as we continue to progress how we're progressing, like, we're just becoming more socially aware and careful about what we say things or whose feelings we're hurting and shit like that. And I think the people who are like trying to ignore it or pretend that it's not happening or pretend that like it doesn't have to be that way, it's like you're seeing it in every like developed nation. There isn't like any like society that we're seeing that is just so different that's like, oh yeah, like it's complete anarchy in Australia. They say whatever the fuck they want and they, you know, do this and that. It's like, no, like people are doing what they're doing.
I don't like framing the changes with iDubbbz as political, but that has become a part of his image, one that he's chosen to lean into more and more over the past few years. I could keep going over the Froggy Fresh drama because there are a lot of smaller details, but I'm more interested in the other things that Ian said in that video. For one, the way he talks about Creator Clash 2. Keep in mind, this is a month before he announces that the event lost $250,000.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Brief update. I am healed from Creator Clash 2. It was a success.
In what way was Creator Clash 2 a success? Because now they recall it as an emotional gut punch that they'll never get over.
We really believed in what we were doing. And then to be greeted with pirating to the point where, like, we couldn't even pay back what we had, like, put on the table to put on the event.
Yeah.
Like, was such a emotional gut punch that I feel like I'm never going to get over. I feel like we decided we were going to fall onto our, like, dullest, rustiest sword and spin around 10 times.
Yeah.
But we're sitting there waiting for the doctor to come in to stitch Ian's eye up, and we're trying to digest the idea that we, like, only sold 50K pay-per-views. And we looked at each other and we were like, do you want to just, like, fucking ourselves? Like, literally, like, there was, like, that actual, like, thought.
It was a success.
Calling Creator Clash 2 a success is a lie. It was bad for their image, it did horribly financially speaking, and it's something they still stress over today. They should have sold it when they had the chance.
I wonder if you guys can, like, sell Creator Clash almost and get a payday that way.
Well, we've been offered.
Already?
Yeah. By Fox.
Fox?
Whoa.
Yeah, we said no.
With 7 figures?
How much was
I think so, yeah. 7 figures.
Like low 7 figures. Can you just
Yeah,
tell me
I
the
think so.
number?
A few of them.
I mean, I don't know what it was specifically. It didn't come directly to us. It came to one of our business partners, but we said no, and we're never gonna do anything like that just because it's too special.
It loses its soul.
You guys do need to be making money, though. You understand that, right?
We lost $250,000 on the event.
He could have made over $1 million and easily shifted focus back to his YouTube channel, saving his financial situation and beyond. There's also the way that iDubbbz talks about Anisa here, which I think is disingenuous.
Let me just say, Anisa is just trying to exist. You know, she doesn't want anything to do with the drama. She doesn't want anything to do with the shit. And I have brought a lot of it into her life.
But Anisa isn't just trying to exist. She's a public figure seeking to make a living off of lust and attention. She's a public figure who's married to another public figure. And as we'll talk about more later, she's someone who is intentionally provocative.
It's kind of like when you go fishing and you go to a new lake and you're like, I'm just gonna, like, throw out, like, I don't know, a grasshopper that I found on the ground and just a big old trout.
Saying that Anisa is just trying to exist is bullshit. Ian also tries to attribute his recent changes to himself rather than Anisa, something which he goes back and forth on.
Unfortunately, a lot of people who think that I've changed or call me a or whatever, they've decided instead of saying that I've changed and that I'm the decider of my future, it's that Anisa has changed me.
Do you feel like this conversation today, this interview, would be different if you had never gotten into the boxing stuff?
Yeah, it would be. I think I'd be less vulnerable in general. And I'd say Anisa has been very, like, instrumental. I think most guys can say that about their partners, is like they're going to have insight that you cannot have about yourself.
She happened to be a family therapist and a trauma therapist. And Ian just came up in passing and she was like, oh, do you want some, like, homework? Like, she was like, would he be willing to come in? And at the time, he definitely wasn't.
They hold the mirror up and they say, this is like, this thing that you're doing or whatever, it's very ugly. You might want to think about that.
And so she started giving me homework. And at the time, he wasn't very, like, open to it. He was like, yeah, whatever. And then I found you and we started watching you, and you kind of, like, bridged the gap for him where he was like, oh, like, this is what therapy kind of is.
Instead of saying that I've changed, it's that Anisa has changed me.
This is a big part of the reason why Anisa gets so much hate. iDubbbz gives her a lot of credit for helping him reinvent himself, but then they both get upset and confused when people attribute his change in personality to Anisa. It's a have your cake and eat it too kind of situation for her, where she wants credit for Ian's content as well as his recent maturation until she realizes or remembers that most people hate the new direction. She has clearly had a direct impact on Ian and his career. This brings us to the most important reason why Creator Clash 2 failed, and it may be obvious at this point. Ian's reputation as a YouTuber. None of the stuff from a year prior with Sam Hyde was resolved. It actually got more tense with the whole Froggy Fresh situation. The interview with Anthony Padilla from the month before only aggravated fans further, understandably so. He hadn't been making videos for a while. Even promotions for Creator Clash were few and far between. He and Anisa started to go on podcasts more more, opening themselves up to new kinds of criticism. People were, once again, more unsure about iDubbbz than ever. The bad financial decisions, the lack of marketing, and the Froggy Fresh situation wouldn't have swayed public opinion so much if Ian hadn't been digging his heels in for the last few years, growing more defiant towards his supporters. Overall, Creator Clash 2 and the way it was handled was probably the single most devastating thing to happen to the iDubbbz brand. If they would have taken a more laissez-faire approach, they would have been fine, and they know that.
When you work with people, you have to accept that you're inviting chaos. When you try to like grab onto it and control it, you're only asking for pain on your end and pain for like the event. And sometimes you really do have to make the call of like, I have to take my hands completely off and just like accept that I'm working with unpredictable people. And I don't like unpredictable people, period. I just don't.
iDubbbz and Anisa's egos constantly get in the way of things. They seem to understand at least some of the problems they have, but refuse to acknowledge them in an honest or meaningful way. It would be difficult for them to admit that their failures are better understood by the people who stopped watching their content, by the people they detest. So Ian doubles down. Shortly after Creator Clash 2, iDubbbz would apologize for much of his past content and unlist all of his Content Cop videos. For an apology, this video is titled in a strange way. I Miss the Old iDubbbz is a title that directly addresses the fans, as most of the video does. He apologizes to Tana and others he's made critical videos on, but it's more of a message to the fans than an apology. For anyone unfamiliar, iDubbbz made a video, a Content Cop, on Tana, a storytime YouTuber who said, I hope iDubbbz loses all of his subscribers and breaks both of his legs. In the video, he walked up to Tana at a fan meetup and dropped the hard R when they were getting their picture taken together. This is because Tana had complained about Ian's use of the N-word, while it turns out she had used it in a much worse context. That and Ian's other critical videos are what he's apologizing for.
Also with the apology, it's like, I wasn't necessarily looking out for the feelings of people who have been watching and enjoying my Content Cops and other content. I was like, I just need to focus my attention on the people that I've maybe hurt.
He was thinking about the audience. He continually brings them up throughout the apology. He did focus on them, just in a patronizing way.
I've realized that I need to be crystal clear about what I believe, so there's no room for ambiguity. I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel, and I've also created a culture of apathy and I don't know, a lot of like cruelty as well. It's also indoctrinated a lot of people into thinking that this is an okay way to behave. I've just always had this dumb philosophy that I'm not responsible for, you know, my audience.
And he does try to take the supposed feelings of his audience into consideration by projecting his apathetic and insecure attitude.
Because I was a nasty, apathetic, insecure person. Now that I don't feel like it represents me and I want to distance myself from it and keep it from, you know, indoctrinating more people.
He even says that video was meant to be a lesson to the people who liked Content Cop.
And for anyone who liked those videos, I want this video to be an example and a lesson for you. You can like content, but you can also think that it's irresponsible and it's hurting other people. Just tap into that part of your brain that's saying like, it's done a lot of damage. We can just let it go.
So to now frame this as a video that didn't take the fans' feelings into consideration is deceitful. It's very clear that the apology is more focused on sending a message to his audience than making an apology for people like Tana. The reason why they'd bother reframing things like this is because he didn't realize just how bad the response would be to this apology. It went over like a lead balloon, and he was already on a losing streak both literally and metaphorically. Right after this apology may have been the height of the hate towards iDubbbz. Moist Critical talked about it and thought Ian was overreacting by issuing an apology at all. Then Hassan and H3 got involved, making an already controversial moment more heated and prevalent. I don't think they helped iDubbbz at all. I think they made matters worse for him. Even though they came to his defense, at that point they were just pouring gas on the fire. Hassan and Ethan Klein are probably the last two people who would be able to change the minds of the people who disliked Ian's apology. Looking back at the public perception of all of this, it makes sense that Ian would want to remember things things differently, i.e. delude himself. Speaking of deceit, he says in this video that he endorses the things he said on Padilla's podcast.
If you guys are at all interested in how I've arrived here, that video gives, a good bit of context and talks about some of my life a little bit.
But as we've seen, he recently claimed that he wasn't in the right headspace to be issuing corrections.
And I really wasn't trying too hard to even correct that when it was coming out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm just like, I already felt out of my element, and I was like, oh man, I don't feel like I'm at all ready to be making or issuing corrections.
So how was he in the right element to renounce a majority of his work and double down on his stance against his old fans for months, yet wasn't responsible or level-headed enough to correct the things he was saying? I guess he could just be admitting that he was being irrational, unhinged, and resentful at the time, but this was supposed to be Ian's most mature and transparent moment, a signal to the fans that they can behave better, just like him. None of this makes any sense. He also talks about his old content as if it were this devastatingly evil act.
I know that this apology isn't enough. I've clearly done a lot of damage. I shouldn't be able to just make an apology video and walk away from it. This is something that I should live the rest of my life with. And I expect to. I've profited off of this bigoted content for years.
He's trying to make his audience understand the gravity of making fun of people on the internet, which comes off as patronizing. There are plenty of people who know how to tease and mock others in a tasteful way, and plenty of people who could benefit from developing those social skills more. Not being able to joke or take a joke can be a problem.
I have always thought that I was an empathetic person. I think only in these past couple of years have I gained the ability empathy, and I'm very ashamed to admit that. It sounds really pathetic to say at the age of 32 I've acquired empathy, and I've realized it because I just can't help myself but feel for other people's pain and suffering now. And I just want you guys to know that you can unlock ability empathy if you experience more life. It might take you getting hurt a little bit, but it's worth it. It is so worth it.
This is like a 5-year-old's idea of empathy. You develop empathy by turning off your inner monologue, listening to others, paying attention to their tone of voice and body language to pick up on emotions they're not explicitly expressing, learning to recognize their patterns of behavior to better understand them. It doesn't come from getting hurt or becoming more sullen. I think Ian confused empathy with resignation and getting out of people's way because he didn't become some symbol of compassion, he simply became less effective as an entertainer. The people who he was apologizing to didn't seem to think this was necessary. Something that an empathetic and understanding person would have picked up on.
I guess he posted this apology video apologizing for a bunch of things he did in the past, one of them being the video he made with me or to me. And I was like, damn. I just never expected that, and I don't know how I feel about it, because and I don't know how to say this. I'm not talking about anything in regards of the things he said, but I'm more so just talking about his actions to me. Him showing up to my show, him putting me on blast, him inevitably making me kind of canceled and lose subscribers and have to apologize and all that type of stuff. I kind of think I deserved that. And maybe that's dark to say, but I don't feel like I'm owed an apology.
Tana is doing just fine, and so are the other supposed content cop victims. Ricegum didn't seem to care. I think he has a family and kids now.
iDubbbz apologizes for videos he made when he was 27. Oh yeah, so he made an apology video. He said sorry to Tana and stuff. I don't know if he said sorry to me though.
I'm sorry to everyone that I made content cop videos on. I still don't like the majority of you, and that's fine.
He
but
says
I can
sorry.
recognize that you did not deserve the hate and harassment that I sent your way. I particularly want to apologize to Tana. Tana, I'm sorry.
Well, hold on. And what about me?
I'm also sorry to all the black viewers and minority groups who had to put up with that video. And
bro, I didn't even get an apology, but he gave me a vague apology. He said He said everyone that I made a vid on, but then he said Tana specifically.
Keemstar didn't seem to care and still has a career in faking drama. Now, Leafy isn't doing too well, but I'm pretty sure that has more to do with stimulant addiction than content cop. I have no clue how Jinx is doing these days, but the way he made his reaction videos was so lazy that it was basically content theft. The criticism was deserved, as it was for all of these people. Some of them even understand that the criticism was deserved, and none of them seem to be holding on to this in the same way that iDubbbz is. This apology wasn't made to make the subjects of Content Cop feel better. This was a message to Ian's audience saying, it's not okay to make fun of or criticize people on the internet, and now since I've apologized for the things I've done and said, you have to stop making fun of me and my wife.
A very big thing that has sort of altered my view on all of this is just the amount of hate and harassment my wife Anisa has received over the years.
I figure this is as good of a place as any to talk more about the hate towards Anisa. For example, in the Froggy Fresh video iDubbbz made, he mentions the way Sam Hyde insults Anisa.
Anyone who's mentioning the fact that Harley trained with Sam Hyde for the year previous, that was before Sam was saying this about my wife.
I don't think so, Anisa, bitch. Look at Anisa. What an ugly piece of shit. But look how beat she is. Oh, nice jack-o'-lantern teeth.
That's like
I can't wait to see what she looks like when she's 32. Her teeth look like a pumpkin head. Like
It's the Anisa Joma hole stretcher. I'm sending this to Anisa's OnlyFans. It goes directly into charity.
Yeah. Everybody hates him and his wife's.
It is very insulting towards her, yet I can't deny that it's hilarious. It's probably the funniest thing Ian's put on his channel in the last few years. It's easy to get behind the hate towards Anisa. In my first video on iDubbbz from over 2 years ago, I said I didn't want to focus on Anisa too much because Ian is his own person who can make his own decisions. I didn't know much about her at the time and wanted to focus on iDubbbz himself, but she started to become more of a part of Ian's career and public image, appearing with him on podcasts, taking more credit for things behind the scenes, attributing his changes to her understanding of the world. The more you see Anisa, the less you can deny that she's been an instrumental part of Ian's downfall. She's an unlikable person trying to make it as an e-celebrity, which is a difficult position to be in.
And I don't like unpredictable people, period. I just don't. I need to be on a leash. I would get triggered by any form of abandonment, basically, and I would go into 5-year-old brain, which for him was horrible, obviously. That was like a really...
I was always trying to like logic it out, and I'm like, man, what the hell? She isn't listening to my logic and my reason.
Yeah, could not get it to work at all.
So again, prove that I'm actually twisting around what you're saying, and you're not giving examples. You're just claiming that I'm doing this.
The word fallacy has been brought up a million times.
That's because you've made appeal to popularity fallacies and appeal to nature fallacies. That's why.
But it did finally click when she did explain, like, I was going into 5-year-old mode. I'm like, oh, yeah.
That's literally what it was.
If that's what it is, then what am I doing trying to, like,
Logic.
give you a list of, like, things to why it's not a problem or whatever.
I get it. We have different opinions. It's not going to change. Clearly, I'm too stupid to understand what you're saying.
In my early relationship with Ian, when something was wrong, his immediate instinct was to find solutions. Like, we can't think about why you're sad or if you're sad or like be in the moment. A lot of men, because they weren't allowed to like sit in their feelings, and they kind of skip over the empathizing with someone.
It doesn't matter what I say. You're just going to...
I'm listening. Look, I'm honestly listening to you.
You're honestly not, and that's the biggest lie that you've given this whole...
I am listening to you.
Fine, we'll get your girlfriend on here. Do I have enough tattoos? Not yet.
I'm saving most of the Anisa stuff for later, but she does keep coming up more and more as the hate towards iDubbbz escalates. There's not a particular incident that I can point to that's solely responsible for the state of Anisa's reputation, and the same can be said for iDubbbz. The OF thing would have garnered some negative attention on its own, sure, but nothing like the hate they've been getting. It's more than just that, or even Creator Clash 2. It's been a much slower and grading process. About a month or two later, Ian uploaded a video titled The Harsh Reality of Creator Clash 2, publicly declaring the event a financial failure, $250,000 short of raising any money for charity. They did do a stream later to help alleviate things, raising around $100,000 for charity and paying for the $250K out of their own pocket. He addresses a rumor that they're pocketing money from the event, which I highly doubt happened. It's far more likely that iDubbbz and Anisa were in over their heads and didn't realize just how much responsibility and volatility comes with running an event like Creator Creator Clash, which is to say their incompetence is to blame. They thought selling as many pay-per-views as the year before was a sure thing.
I foolishly thought that the success of last year should be a minimum. You know, a minimum for what we are able to do this year. We did half as well as we did the first year. 50,000 compared to 100,000 the first year.
Even without some of the oversights and the drama of Creator Clash 2, this is such an unrealistic perspective. There's no such thing as a sure thing in business. The harsh reality of Creator Clash 2 is sort of an end of an era. The amount of videos covering iDubbbz started to decrease substantially, and it was around this time I stopped making videos on him as well. The last video I made talking about iDubbbz at all was when he went on Olay's channel, a highly progressive YouTuber. Francesca Ramsey was in the video too, who was known for her role in MTV Decoded, an infamously condescending show. I'm just gonna play some clips so you get an idea of what that was like.
He put my face in videos and called me, you know, a and, you know, said that my work was cancer.
Go look at the privated videos on the videos, every video you did, every content cop on a Jinx, what you did to you, what you did to all of them, and what was the revenue on those videos, and pay and cuts and checks. Cuts and checks.
And I don't have any black friends.
An apology is not enough for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that he can do that will ever be enough.
Yeah. If we had the ability to cancel you, you wouldn't have been successful in the first place.
So this is the kind of crowd that iDubbbz is trying to get chummy with. People who are infinitely bitter and say that nothing will ever be enough. People who would have happily ended his career if given the opportunity. People who lie about what videos he did or didn't make. People who have no interest whatsoever in his content, his future, or his well-being. These are the people that iDubbbz has chosen to side with. I welcome opinions about my apology from people in communities whom the apologies were directed at. That is where my care starts and ends. So Ian's disregard for his audience was indeed intentional. It wasn't a mistake or an error in communication like he says on a more recent podcast. He shouldn't be surprised when his fanbase returns an equal lack of care for him or his content. At this point, Ian's reputation as a YouTuber is abysmal. Sure, some people liked the apology, but those were mostly people outside of his initial audience, people who he's failed to attract to his channel, it seems. The content he was putting out after Creator Clash 2 was some of the most boring, hollow, unimpactful content I've seen in my life, and I've watched a lot of bad content. It just feels lifeless.
But something like the bongos, that's just disgusting hard plastic that sounds like, man, I love these bongos. I love music, yes I do. This is really cool. Extremely safe, but they're also extremely boring.
Surprisingly, this was the good content he was putting out at the time. He started a second channel called Maximum Damage with another YouTuber, Dax Flame, although it's been half a year since there's been a Dax upload, so all that's really happening at that channel right now is the iDubbbz and Anisa podcast, She Ruined My Career. She Ruined My Career is a weekly podcast where the Jomas talk about, well, practically nothing. Think somewhere between a long drawn-out conversation with your neighbor and staring at a clock for an hour. It is the antithesis of content.
Oh, I wrote down here, the US simps are coping that they have most medals, but the majority are bronze.
Is that a real thing? Is that happening?
Yeah, I've seen some comments about,
the only people that I can think of who might enjoy this unironically are H3 wine moms, the kind of people who want to feel like they understand internet culture better than they actually do. I don't think iDubbbz has ever had any luck with that demographic, but I'm just guessing. Let's talk about the title of the podcast, She Ruined My Career. It's supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek way of owning the haters who think Anisa has played a role in Ian's downfall, but it comes off as petty and desperate. That's not taking into consideration how the show is doing view-wise. It's miserable. Since it began almost a year ago, it's only declined in viewership. The first episode got 60k views over the course of 10 months. During the next 5 or so episodes, the viewership would decline by up to 50% per episode, and they'd struggle to break 10k views from that point on. Episode 40 got less than 1,000 views in 7 hours. It's surreal to see someone with over 7 million subs on their main channel struggle to reach a few thousand 100,000 views on their podcast within a full day. Even though the title is supposed to be facetious, she really has had a terrible impact on Ian's career. They wanted to make a fool out of anyone who said Anisa ruined things, only to end up looking foolish themselves. Most of the show can be summed up with 5 different types of moments: awkward nothings, embarrassment, sometimes to themselves, sometimes to each other, Anisa being quirky for attention, old drama and the haters, and tattoos. You're now up to speed on a vast majority of the podcast. Some clips got picked up by other channels, like the OF shaving thing.
I'm realizing that I'm caring less about body hair, like women with like armpit hair or
I think that's my fault.
arm hair.
Like 4 years ago, I just stopped shaving as often. And I think you've just had to get used to it.
No, that's not true.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
shave
don't-
all the time.
No, I only shave when I'm doing OnlyFans.
No, I think your perception of like what is shaven and what is not shaven is different.
Okay.
The sort of thing usually won't gain much traction, but Ian's reputation was still in the gutter, so people made videos about it. He was once known for making some of the most loved and respected content on the platform. Now he has a Nothing Burger podcast that gives people a strange look into Ian and Anisa's relationship. Apparently, that's what they were going for.
I guess that's what I've realized I want to get out of the podcast is just people understanding what our dynamic is finally.
Oh, that's true.
That's
a great point.
Once again, this doesn't make sense. The people who were still on the iDubbbz train at this point weren't interested in learning about their relationship. Just like Ian's apology, She Ruined My Career prioritizes proving the haters wrong above all else. The production itself is an issue too. There have been multiple instances where they think they're recording an episode when it turns out they're not, only to redo or scrap the material.
We already recorded this episode, so this is like a re-recording of it.
Yeah.
If that makes any kind of sense.
Well, we forgot to hit the record button. So
Yeah,
we were just,
yeah. It's like, we didn't really record it.
Oh, true.
we just thought we did.
It was a podcast for
Yeah.
God, for God's
Yeah.
eyes only.
Oh my God, yeah.
The main issue with production isn't in the video or audio quality or their set. It's a lack of preparation. They claim to have notes of some kind for most of their shows, but I don't understand how they can do a reasonable amount of prep and have the show turn out so empty.
This is a good way to start because this is going to be my very first podcast without notes, which means...
Really?
You're doing the opposite of what the angry comments want.
Yes. Unprepared, completely.
Yeah, what else is new?
There's a bigger part of that problem, though.
Today, I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt.
Oh, because we're going to Canada. And
I'm wearing the same thing from last episode because we filmed these 20 minutes apart.
Fuck up, Dane. No one would know unless you fucking said that shit.
Well, I'm wearing the same pants and socks.
If you didn't quite catch that, Dane was basically saying that they record the podcasts in batches. I'm not sure how often they do this, but it would explain a lot. I think the reason why iDubbbz puts any time into half-assing the second channel at all is because it allows him to avoid the much bigger task of getting his main channel back off the ground. Because he's made this wrong connection between him being critical and edgy and people hating his wife, his creativity has been stifled. He'd rather spend time distracting himself with side projects than undergo the task of fixing his career.
Like, this is, I think what frustrates me about it is like, it's all like good advice if
you cared.
Well, basically, no, it's like in a vacuum, it's
Yeah.
good advice, right? Yeah.
He also said that
the reflection was there because I didn't care about it.
Yeah. We do this. This is supposed to be just a casual.
This is the low effort
This
thing.
is the low effort casual thing. Most people don't give a shit.
If the low effort thing isn't getting views, is bad for your image, and is causing you stress, then stop doing it and focus on something that is worth your full attention. The entertainment industry is more competitive and oversaturated than ever. If someone like iDubbbz makes a podcast, people expect some level of care, effort, coordination, an idea or premise that goes beyond, let's send a message to the haters. Not trying is the flimsiest excuse they could have possibly come up with. Yeah, it's supposed to suck. It's not supposed to be respected or successful. Okay, Jomas, sure.
If someone is like criticizing me for something I consider to be like pretty mundane and like not worth not that big of a deal, like I take that very like personally, and I don't see it just as like a bit of criticism or a bit of advice. I don't want to navigate this middle ground area where I have to use my own like judgment on a case-by-case basis of like what is worth it for me.
Ian is going to have to get past that one way or another. The more personally he takes these small remarks, the worse things are going to get. Any content creator should approach comments and criticism the same way they would look at bad weather. Acknowledge it, but don't take it personally. I know there are other clips to compare and laugh at from their podcast, although they probably wouldn't tell us much about what iDubbbz has done to ruin his career. The entire premise of the podcast and how unengaging it is are the main issues here. There are no redeeming qualities whatsoever, and to go through how bad each and every episode is would take way too much time. If you want to take a look at how bad it gets, check out Kino Casino's coverage. PPP deserves a Purple Heart for clipping that hazardous waste, or whatever they give Canadians. If you make a show directed towards the haters, there's a good chance the fans won't bother to show up. This isn't the only time iDubbbz had that sort of idea either.
Just generally some people just complaining about like new content or whatever. I want to speak to them. It would be such a good documentary to just meet these people in person and not like pass any judgment. The whole purpose is basically, I mean, if the audience wants to pass judgment, they can. I want to meet like call it like my 5 biggest haters or something like that. And just, you know, in person, see if they, you know, have the same energy or like what they're, even just seeing what their lives are like, you know? I think it would be fascinating to get a little window into like just a random fucking person online.
I'm not sure where this clip comes from, but I think it's telling. iDubbbz didn't develop empathy as much as he started to direct his frustration towards his haters instead of other online figures. By the time he would call out another YouTuber, he had lost his edge. This brings us to the Narcs video. By the time it came out, there hadn't been a content cop released in 6 years. This Narcs video is probably the closest thing to content cop we've gotten as of late, and it's bad. Narcs is a YouTube channel that tells people to put their grocery cart back instead of leaving it stray in the parking lot. Here are some of the clips that iDubbbz used in his video.
Dinged car doors, spots taken up, grocery prices raised sky high because employees have to go out and spend their time hunting down carts. We are publicly shaming those dicks who don't take back their shopping carts. Narcs, you curved your cart. You didn't take it back to the cart corral where it belonged. Are you okay? That's the second curbing, by the way.
No, I'm not okay, you
But I'm a nice guy. No, ma'am, you left your cart here like a lazy bones.
Yeah? What are you bothering us for?
Because you left your cart out.
So what?
So that's gonna block someone's spot.
I don't care.
But the problem is we've sort of graduated from that.
See, that attitude's getting you a hood magnet of shame, sir. Go with a hood magnet since that was a curving. Gotcha. Another one in progress over here. Hold on. I'll be back in the spot. Let me get you another one right there.
This is the kind of stuff that iDubbbz is calling out these days. For this sort of content, Narcs is pretty tame. Eric Andre has easily been more of a menace than Narcs, and calling him out wouldn't make sense either. The guy is just asking people to take their cart back and putting a harmless magnet on their car if they don't. But what are you gonna do when the Narc calls you lazy bones? Are you strong enough to recover from that?
What we do is we narc out people who are being big old lazy bones and not taking their carts back. You're being a lazy bone.
And I do have a handicap, actually.
Is your disability lazy bones-itis?
There's a lot of people who say like, yeah, this ain't so bad. The Narc, he's hitting people with the white people insults. What's so wrong with that? It's like, dude, if someone called you lazy bones, would you not feel fucking awful? Especially if you're being lazy? That shit is like a level 9 white people insult. Those hurt. I think one of the worst insults that I've ever received in my life was a white person insult, and it was just a really well-placed no shit Sherlock. Like, if someone hits you with a no shit Sherlock at the right moment in time, you can't recover from that.
Unless you're a battle-hardened sociopath, then you will buckle under the pressure of white people insults. You will not recover. He makes some other points, like when people ask the Narc to leave them alone, he doesn't leave. But neither does the person they're confronting, and they can leave whenever they want. Ian also says that unhinged basically means the same thing as disabled, so this guy's just dunking on the mentally ill, apparently.
Yes, it's very easy to call these people unhinged. Another word you can use is disabled. Their brain isn't working like yours or mine. time. For some people, they feel like they have to answer the door.
No, you can't attribute all unhinged behavior to mental illness. That just enables healthy people to act unhinged under the guise of mental illness. The thing I find most interesting about this video is the irony poisoning argument that iDubbbz makes.
If you're gonna, record someone at their fucking lowest and like antagonize people to the point where they blow up at you, we should at least know some of your history. He's able to do the like irony poisoning thing where a lot of people who are watching it are like, oh, it's just jokes. But he's like, no, actually, I'm very serious about this. Like on his radio program, they have like a segment where they're talking about how he loves calling the cops on people.
And of course I called the cops, and of course they didn't show at least the 10 minutes that I was there. We called the cops on these people, or else they'll keep doing it. Panhandling, which is against the law, blocking the sidewalk, which is against the law, drinking in public, which is definitely against the law, and I called the cops. You gotta
arrest him! I think he was suggesting calling the cops for someone who was panhandling. So it isn't surprising that he also cares about the shopping carts going in their place.
That point doesn't really fit here. The cart narc admits that he does care about this, and most people think that putting your cart back is a good thing to do. Not putting your cart back can be characterized as lazy, so where's the irony? I guess the concept of a cart narc could be considered ironic, but I don't see how asking someone to put back their cart would be. Putting your cart back is a pretty basic and universal standard. I think the reason why iDubbbz makes this point is because it's what he was trying to criticize Sam Hyde for, a criticism that didn't quite land with a lot of his audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what happens when you deal with someone who uses harassment and uses people as entertainment and the prop for the comedy and the fun. I could casually just imply that I'm talking about a particular person
in the comments,
and the fans are just like, you want me to do what?
I know.
You want me to do what? I could go over there right now.
Yeah.
And post some shit. I'm doing it. I did it. I posted 10 comments.
Yeah.
Not pass any judgment. The whole purpose is basically, if the audience wants to pass judgment, they can.
The Cart Narcs video was received horribly, and I think it's clear why. Their content is relatively innocuous, and iDubbbz is playing it up to be something worse than it is. Not everyone who experiences rage or has an unhinged moment is automatically disabled or mentally ill. Some people just have bad attitudes.
That sort of flippant behavior makes me want to it makes me want to be violent. It makes me want to be very violent.
We're starting to get into the stuff that's happened in the last few months. Along with She Ruined My Career, they have a Patreon exclusive podcast called The Bog. In the 15th episode, they talk a lot about Creator Clash, Sam Hyde, and some other old drama. Other YouTubers started to catch wind of it and made some videos about it. I've already played quite a few clips from this, but I want to play one over again to make another point. It's about Creator Clash 2.
We couldn't even pay back what we had put on the table to put on the event.
Yeah.
Was such a emotional gut punch that I feel like I'm never going to get over.
It's been over a year since Creator Clash 2. I know it must have been tough to face the music on that one, but I don't see any effort to move on. I see two people who can't help but dwell on the past. They've been holding on to all of the negative things surrounding them over the last few years, with the hopes that a free win is right around the corner. The only realistic option they have is to let it go. No amount of complaining or revision is going to sway public opinion in their favor. Relentless defiance towards their old audience is only digging their grave faster. Here's another clip which I think is telling.
And they think that this again is me pushing, but this wasn't even my idea. I've tried to quit it. Honestly, I've tried to quit this podcast 4 times, and Ian keeps going no, which I'm thankful. I'm glad that you're not letting me quit it. I think that it's important, but I want it makes me so mad that people think that this is me. I'm I need to be in everything.
Yeah.
All the time. I don't.
No.
Anisa tried to quit the podcast 4 times. If that's really the case, Ian might be keeping her there just to try and prove the haters wrong. Look, you can't quit. If you quit now, people will continue to see me as incompetent and aimless, and they'll keep doubting the strength of our relationship. If you quit now, the years we spent trying to prove the haters wrong will be for nothing. I could be wrong, but it fits perfectly. Why else would they keep doing something that neither of them care about? Because they're too dug in to dare change course. A sort of sunk cost fallacy fallacy, if you will. Next, we have Anisa's meltdown on Twitch. She's probably had some other incidents like this one on stream, but similar to that episode of The Bog, this is something that a good chunk of YouTubers wound up talking about, with good reason too.
Commentary YouTubers have no idea what it is to work a normal job, let alone put on a whole event, okay? You have no clue. You don't even know what it's like to clock in and have someone breathe down your neck. I know a lot of them have never worked a real job. I know that for a fact. And if you have, you worked there for a week and you cried and you quit.
Even in the most understandable circumstances, this is a pretty cliche remark. When someone like Anisa says it, it's laughably embarrassing. Being a successful YouTuber is less labor-intensive and a lot more appealing than most jobs. However, it still takes some combination of effort, know-how, charisma, awareness, creativity, consistency, or thick skin, depending on what kind of content you're making. So when Anisa complains about commentary YouTubers not knowing what it's like to work a real job, she fails to realize that she's currently making much lazier and thoughtless content than the people she's going off on. Plus, something tells me that Anisa would have panic attack after panic attack if she had to work in customer service these days.
I would rather die than phone someone.
She also went in on Rusty Cage, a YouTuber known for music, knives, and a lemonade stand. Here, Anisa is talking about an incident with him at Creator Clash 2.
I know that you would f***ing cry if I said something to you in real life. I know you would cry. How do I know? Because I've done it to one of you fuckers in real life, and you have cried. You cried and apologized to me, and you even said that I made you feel like a bitch. He was not supposed to get in. The reason why he got in was because he happened to say, by accident, Justin said I could get in. They gave him a wristband, so he got in. There was like a free Froggy Fresh sign that like made it to the front of the walkout of Ian's walkout, and he like tweeted the picture. No, it wasn't Brandon Buckingham. It was fucking I always call him Rusty Spoon, but I think his name's Rusty Cage.
At the beginning of the video, Amp Lemon and I had made pro Froggy Fresh signs, one of which made its way down to the floor of the Creator Clash arena. YouTuber Rusty Cage took a photo of the signs and posted it to Twitter with the caption "uh-oh," and was subsequently confronted by Anisa. Let's hear that story from him.
I paid money, I'm on the floor seats, and I see like some shenanigans going down. I take a photo of it. It's just people holding up a sign. It said Froggy did nothing wrong. Like
seemingly innocuous.
Yeah, right. I go to this like after event, and Anisa comes up to me. She comes up and says, that tweet was really not cool, and I just apologize. I felt kind of like a bitch. I was like, why the fuck did I apologize? What am I apologizing for? I don't even know this person. That's really not cool. Honestly, Anisa, it was very cool.
He snuck into the party. So Ian wasn't around, much like right now, which is why I'm doing this right now. Ian wasn't around. He was somewhere else. And I saw that fucker. I saw him waiting in line for free alcohol. And I was like, absolutely not. I just put my hand on his shoulder, right? I leaned over and I said, hey man, what you did yesterday, really fucking uncool. Actually, he was like, like he was shocked, and it clearly got to him, because he ended up in like some interview later saying that it made him feel like a bitch. Why would you admit that?
You might realize this doesn't line up too well with the new, wholesome, empathetic direction of the iDubbbz brand and Maximum Damage channel. When Anisa talks about the way she confronted Rusty Cage, she looks very satisfied with herself. Strange that this is the kind of moment that she cherishes and relishes in.
So Ian wasn't around, much like right now, which is why I'm doing this right now. This is the truth, okay? Ian keeps me on a leash, okay? And I'm okay with that, because I need to be on a leash.
It probably doesn't make Ian's job of reviving his career any easier when he's also on Anisa patrol and containment. Imagine having to worry about your public image every time you go out of town because your wife might start acting unhinged on the internet or start spilling tea related to your career.
I don't know. Yeah. It's hard. I thought going to therapy would actually make me want to get off the internet. Like, I thought, like, I would go to therapy and I'd be like, oh, of course, like, I need to get off the internet. But for some reason, like, therapy has made me want to, like, come back to the internet. I love doing this. I love talking. I love riffing. I love entertaining. I loved who I was career-wise before I stepped foot into the iDubbbz community. I loved that. I was so happy in that aspect of my life, in my career. And I gave it up because I thought at the time that that was the right thing to do. I thought that it would stop people from like obsessively, I don't know. I thought it was the right thing to do. It's weird. Going back to therapy has made me realize how much I don't want to like let that go.
There's some animosity between iDubbbz and Anisa regarding their career paths. They have significant creative differences which are bleeding through now that they're making a lot more content together. Instead of trying to keep their images separate, they tried to merge them into this gray, flavorless paste. It would be wise for them to try and separate their brands and careers from each other's, and it would probably do wonders for their self-esteem. The issue is that they've made the names iDubbbz and Anisa intertwined. It would take a lot of effort and ingenuity to successfully distance their content from one another. But guess what? If you took Anisa seriously on any of that, congratulations, you just got pranked. It was an elaborate ruse, you fool. Or at least this is what she tries to claim on the following episode of She Ruined My Career.
So for those of you who don't know, I started streaming again. So when I was a popular streamer, and I guarantee you all popular streamers do this, you have to like tap into your lizard brain a bit. And when you have a thought or a feeling, no matter how like dumb, like the second thought that happens, you have to ignore it no matter what it is. Like, is it good? Is it bad? Doesn't really matter. You have to go with the first like lizard brain thought, and then you got to like amp it up. I feel like giving a little rant. And I knew that if anyone was going to like clip and share it, it would be the like, no offense, commentary community, but the bottom of the barrel commentary community, the ones that like won't even show their face and shit, and are like playing Subway Surfers or whatever the fuck they're doing. and so I was
I don't know if they play Subway Surfers.
What's the one with the knife?
Oh, so they surf.
They surf.
Surfing. Call of Duty, or not Call of Duty, Counter-Strike surfing maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. But, and so I was specifically talking about them and going on like a little like fun little rant, because back in the day when, you know, that you want to get clipped, you want to get shared. Negative, positive, more often negative clips are getting shared. I just wanted to see if I could still do it. I want to like be able to give into those things because I think that's what like makes a good streamer.
That makes no sense. The story she told about Rusty Cage was real, her hatred towards commentary YouTubers is real, she does seem like the type who needs to be on a leash, and what she said about her streaming career came off as genuine, even though she kind of cut herself off. Furthermore, this explanation does nothing to convince people that Anisa isn't a manipulative or spiteful person. In fact, she's admitting to manipulation and bragging about it.
It feels good to know that, like, at least I have that type of staying power, but it is interesting. I really did. It's kind of like when you go fishing and you go to a new lake and you're like, I'm just gonna like throw out like, I don't know, a grasshopper that I found on the ground and just a big old trout.
I think this is their biggest problem overall. If iDubbbz now holds himself to this impossible standard of always worrying about any negative impact his content may have, and both he and Anisa agree that that's the right thing to do, why doesn't Anisa concern herself with the impact of her content? Why does iDubbbz cheer on her hostile, provocative, and deceptive behavior?
And it has like the caption, iDubbbz wife or girlfriend, whatever it said, rages against the... Triggered. Yeah, right. They use the word triggered. Against the commentary community. It really made you look, in my opinion, like very confident and very with it and real. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I scurried upstairs. I had like read some of the comments and I was like, this shit's awesome. And once I saw the full thing, I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
But she's doing the thing that iDubbbz hates Sam Hyde for. She's, as Ian would say, irony poisoning, blurring the line between sincerity and irony by saying that her meltdown was meant to be a stunt of sorts. She's using other people for content, hoping that they'll fall for the trap of taking her rant seriously and make themselves look stupid in the process. I don't believe that was truly her intent. I think she was desperately trying to dismiss her own lunacy as cunning, but that's how she's characterized characterizing herself, and that's the behavior iDubbbz is encouraging. Anisa is desperately seeking attention, and she's willing to settle for negative attention because it's easier to act like a quirky, unlikable spaz than it is to be a charismatic entertainer. It makes sense that the label Puppet Master stuck to both iDubbbz and Anisa. I'm not sure if they realize just how much mental gymnastics it's been taking to continue to see themselves as blameless. Out of the blue, Dane has this realization about their career paths.
I just had a realization. Can I just interject real quick with a realization I had? Because you just talked at length about your journey of like ditching the iDubbbz character and becoming more Ian, and people kind of being taken aback by that and reacting to it and being like, this is weird, I don't like this. Anisa is having like the opposite experience. She's like been acting normal for so long that when she tapped into her Rainbow Kids alter ego, everybody was like taken aback by it and be like, what the what's going on? She's freaking out. They're not familiar with the lore. I just think it's interesting that you two are having like opposite experiences where like you're trying out either an authentic or inauthentic thing and people are reacting negatively to it.
That's so interesting of you to say because that's true.
While I don't agree that Anisa has been normal for so long, what Dane said is insightful. Ian's going down one path where any and all provocation or risk is to be avoided like the plague. Anisa, on the other hand, is ramping up the performative, misleading, clout-hungry side of her. They're both going in opposite, incompatible, dead-end directions. iDubbbz is in a strange position where it wasn't a single event or action that got him cancelled or made people turn on him. It's been a years-long process of being defiant towards his fanbase to make some kind of moral point, only for his wife to come to the complete opposite conclusion about her online presence. He attributes the hate Anisa gets to his older, edgier content when she's the reason why she gets hate. They usually dismiss criticism through strawman arguments or insults, only annoying the public further. There used to be some level of mystery behind who iDubbbz was. Now he's desperately trying to convince people that his life and relationship are normal by making a podcast called She Ruined My Career. They want to have more control over their image than they do, and the way they go about addressing things usually makes their situation worse. They refuse to let the chips fall where they may, making a pathetic spectacle of themselves instead. Ian's career is not beyond saving, although if he truly was capable of doing so, something tells me he would have started to turn things around by now. The future of iDubbbz is as murky as it gets. I'm aware of the ways social media influences us, not just the headlines and the content, but as a mode of communication in general. The layer of detachment the internet provides can lead to people being more hostile. While it doesn't feel good to have people dislike you or criticize you, that's just the nature of the internet. We can't expect everyone to like us, and we can't expect others to behave a certain way, especially in today's world. Every job has some downsides. It comes with the territory and ought to be treated as such. You can't count on a social environment to change to your liking. Here are the things that I think iDubbbz could do to help save his career. You know, other than telling him to ditch Anisa. If I were in his position, that's what I would do, but I can't expect him to divorce his wife just because people on the internet say he should. Anyway, here's my advice. Establish work boundaries between himself and Anisa. The way they're currently making content together is dysfunctional and damaging both of their images. If Anisa wants to make her brand about getting negative attention in shallow ways, she's free to do so, but her self-destructive behavior shouldn't come at the cost of Ian's reputation. The more they can distance their brands from each other, the better. Take some time to reflect on how people perceive his more recent content. It seems like he may have started this process because he finally admitted that he sees the change in tone and energy with his content. This happened after he collaborated with his old friends at Cold Ones and he saw the comments saying things were off. It's more than just a tonal issue though. It's a refusal to look at the other reasons why people stopped watching him. And no, it's not because he stopped saying the N-word. He should also sit down and force himself to watch a marathon of his more recent content, especially She Ruined My Career. Something tells me he hasn't been quality checking his videos for the past few years. After some honest reflection and taking criticism seriously, he should shift his focus away from the criticism. He's been dwelling on these things for years without really confronting them, mentioning and addressing drama here and there without taking responsibility for anything. If and when he does reflect, there will be no reason reason to dwell any longer. Move on. Find an entirely new direction. If he doesn't want to make Content Cop again, that's completely fine, but come on, raiding Cheez-Its and making Thanos fidget toys? It's the safest, most bland, least passionate content he could have possibly made. What his new direction should be, I have no idea, that's up to Ian, but what he's currently doing is failing, and that's clear for everyone to see. As a side note, Ian would learn a lot from reading The Laws of Human Nature. iDubbbz is a very unique case of a downfall, and it's one that can still be fixed, but if he continues to defy his audience, his haters, and their criticism at every possible turn, he will continue on his never-ending spiral. He struggles with taking any helpful advice because that would require humility. He is currently choosing to define his career by the people who dislike him instead of the things he's passionate about in order to make a point. That is not empathy, it's just selfish.
Listen, you got at least 3/4 of your life to go. That's 3 more lifetimes to you. So don't blow it. Don't do drugs. If you're doing it, stop it. Get some help. McDonald's wants you to give yourself a chance to find out all the wonderful things you really can be. And so do I.
I'm an Adderall head now.
True.